My name is Jonathan Gillum.
And this is The Experts.
Technical difficulties galore tonight. And here we are. Finally. Sorry for the technical difficulties. Tonight, I couldn't get logged on Facebook for some reason. But here we are. This is The Experts, for those of you that are wondering, what the heck is this? I'm Jonathan Gillum. You're live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And I had to rush over here. First off, how many of you have kids, and in this case, I have a dog, that as soon as I start talking on this show, or even start to turn stuff on, he goes crazy? Well, even though he's 18 years old, he kind of goes crazy. But anyway, we got a lot to talk about. One of the other reasons why I was late getting started is because there's so much stuff happening right now when it comes to Fusion GPS and something that's pointing at something. I have a feeling I predicted this about a year ago. And also, I just want to touch on a few things about Chelsea Manning, Bradley Manning, and how he should shut the up. We'll talk about that now. Let's do it. Pow. All right. Man, I had everything set to start, but I hadn't pulled my microphone over here, and I got so much stuff in the way here that it caused me to be a little bit disheveled there at the beginning. But here's the thing, folks. Whatever. This is a live show. I've been doing it 2 years now. I don't sweat the small stuff, so I'm not really worried about that. But it's very interesting. There's some stuff that's going on, and I'm going to bring up a lot more articles than I normally I go and I read these articles before I come on. But there's just a lot in the news right now. Unfortunately, I can't pull this up here at this moment, but there's so much stuff going on right now with this Fusion GPS dossier that was put out, and I figured we needed to cover this, and I'll tell you why. I'm sorry, I'm looking over here. I'm fixing something right here as we speak. It is. Listen, I've been saying all along that there was a source involved, or sources involved, and that boom, there you go, and that this thing was very organized from the beginning. I don't know, still don't know where it started, but I can tell you that it's very, very organized in that. In that, the way the whole case is unfolded, you don't even have to actually look at the case and say it's coincidental that information has unfolded, or you look at it and you say it's interesting how these things that the left, the Democratic Party, or Trump's enemies in the Republican Party have said, oh yeah, this has come up about Russian and the collusion and all this stuff, but never really amounts to anything at all. It hasn't amounted to anything whatsoever. Sorry, I'm entering these codes as we speak. And there it goes. And so there's news coming out now, and I don't think most people are going to know exactly what is being said. And again, that's one of the reasons why this show is so important, because what it allows people to do is that it allows me to use my experience and expertise and years in service in the government and like in the FBI, and seeing how things work, and as an investigator, how you look around the headlines or what in the case of a witness, for instance, may be telling you, and you try to grasp at the real story. I'll tell you where I really honed this skill was by working with sources. sources always, by and large, unless it's a rare source that you get, but every now and then you'll get a source that is just they're doing it for their country and or their community, and so they will tell you all about what's going on, and they have great insight whatsoever. That's kind of a rare thing. Usually sources want something, and or they know that they're sacrificing a whole lot because they got involved. They're going to give you information that could put them in harm's way. So when most sources give you information, you kind of have to figure out what it is they're trying to say exactly. So when I look at the headlines, that's exactly what I see. I see almost like a source. I see them putting out stuff that makes it look this way or makes it look that way, but in reality, there's more to the story than what is normally being reported, even on the headlines or when you read the story. A lot of it has to do with the fact that media is, it's slanted one way or the other, but a lot of it has to do with the fact that, reporters are not experts in any field except for getting some information and writing a story about it. That's what they're experts at. They're not trained investigators, and even if they are trained investigators, they haven't done it in an operational capacity where they're dealing with people that are going to go to jail. I mean, when people are in trouble, they're going to twist the story a lot more. And if you're an investigator, you start to see this type of stuff happening, and you know how to deal with that. So when it comes to reporters and how they deal with stuff, that's just not quite the way. And hold on one second here. And so as I looked at these headlines, and I hope they're over here now. Let me see if I can pull some of these up. Let's see here. So I can pull them up on this computer. So as I pull these up and I go through these headlines, it's pretty interesting. There they are. Okay. So when we look at this dossier, right? And first of all, if I'm going to pull a story up here that was on foxnews.com. It's on Fox News right now. Now I had to go to a meeting earlier about some other business that I take care of and that I do, my other career that I do, consulting and stuff. So I wasn't able to really monitor the news today like I wanted to. But when I came home and I did see, and I'm going to wait and give it some time before I say anything about Bannon. I don't know if you've heard, Steve Bannon stepped down from Breitbart. He is no longer going to be associated with Breitbart Radio. So there's a lot of interesting details there. I'm going to stay away from that right now, and I'm going to there's a lot of stuff there that has to unfold, and quite frankly, I don't really want to make comments on that right now. So also, I don't know really if that's the most important story that we got to talk about right now. I really think that this Fusion GPS thing is. So as we see here, I'm going to pull this over. That I'm just going to show you the headline here. So inside the Trump dossier handoff, McCain's go-between speaks out. Now this was interesting. Now there's like 3 different stories on here about this dossier that's coming out. Again, this is off of foxnews.com, and this is my good friend Catherine Herridge is writing this story here. And so the man who says he acted as the go-between. I'm going to read the headlines and part of the story, and then I'm going to give you my take on this, okay? First, I got to use some of this Singer spray on my throat. This stuff is good. If you're sick and you got a cough, go get some of this stuff. Dadgum. They should be paying me royalties for this. It works great. Okay. That's not what I wasn't giving an advertisement. But, okay, so the man who says he acted as a go-between last year to inform Senator John McCain about the controversial dossier, or for you Southerners out there, dossier, contained salacious allegations about then-candidate Donald Trump, is speaking out, revealing how the ex-British spy who researched the document helped coordinate its release to the FBI, the media, and Capitol Hill. Now, I've been saying all along that I find it very interesting that this dossier was released to the media, to Capitol Hill, and the FBI. Now, we know that the FBI took parts of this dossier, and it's one of the ways that it got its FISA up on the Trump campaign and listening to people. I don't know really the details of that story. Those kind of details are very, it's hard to figure out exactly what happened by what the media reports. What I can speculate from all the stuff that's been put out there, though, it sounds to me like this dossier was created, okay? It was created by Fusion GPS, was paid over $160,000, probably way more than that, and they got a hold of a British intelligence officer. By the way, if you haven't shared this show, do it right now while I'm telling this story. Just share it and get right back in. If you're on Twitter, tweet it, retweet it, do whatever you got to do. So this Fusion GPS reached out and got a hold of a British intelligence officer, an ex-spy, and so this Russian spy somehow put together, through sources that he had in Russia, put together a dossier about President Trump's interactions with Russians and stuff that was going on over there. We now know that this thing was fake. We know that, okay? But it appears, I can speculate on this, that I think that the FBI, the upper echelons in the FBI, utilized this dossier to go get FISA warrants to listen to different individuals in the Trump campaign, which is crazy that they would do that based on a dossier that did not come from their own intelligence and obviously was not vetted. Now, the fact that it was released to the media and Capitol Hill at the same time shows me that it had political leanings, that this dossier, and it was paid for by the Democratic Party. So we know right off the bat that the dossier from the get-go was tainted because it was paid for by political operative money. It was then shared with Republican operatives that hate President Trump, i.e. John McCain. And then it got to the FBI through McCain and through Christopher Steele, who is the former British spy, who said that he had great contacts in the FBI. And I can almost guarantee you that his contacts were this upper echelon of people that we see now falling by the wayside at the tops of the DOJ and the FBI. Now, when we read through this story, he says that his mission, this is Sir Andrew Wood, he was the go-between between this dossier, whoever is Fusion GPS and the people making the dossier, and Senator McCain. He says his mission was to be the go-between and messenger to tell the senator and assistants that such a dossier existed. Sir Andrew Wood told Fox News in an exclusive interview with senior executive producer Pamela K. Brown. Okay. We'll give them their props. Okay. So Fox News spoke to Wood at the 2017 Halifax International Security Forum in Nova Scotia. Now, first off, you got to know that there's something about, and I still haven't put my finger on it, these international security forums. I worked security at a couple of those when I was in the FBI up at Fordham University that had to do with cybersecurity. And they had all these big wigs from the security field, which is interesting because most of these people don't know their toenails from what it would take to secure a computer. And yet they're the ones that are speaking at all of these gigs, not the techies, not the people who are the actual experts in these fields. It's all of these people like this, this guy, what's his name here again? Sir Andrew Wood, going to these different international security forums. It's those types of people. Now, this guy in particular, and it's very shady to me, these things. A lot of times they go there, they get paid big money to be there, and not really a whole lot comes out of these types of forums. But this guy, Sir Andrew Wood, was the British ambassador to Moscow from 1995 to 2000. he witnessed the end of Russia President Boris Yeltsin and the rise of Vladimir Putin. Now, that's interesting because he obviously has connections to Putin, obviously. And he's an ambassador, which means he's probably kind of slimy, and which most of them are. Don't think that these ambassadors are anybody who should be worshipped, because the majority of them are over there padding their pockets and doing the dirty dealings of politics for the administration or their political party. So this guy is British, and he was over there. And again, now remember, he's the go-between between Senator McCain and Christopher Steele, who was a former British spy. Now, John McCain, I don't know how he got secreted into this, but I have a feeling that this was a go-around, and John McCain was probably more involved with this than he wants you to think he's a Republican, and that was a Democratic-funded dossier, and it got passed to him through this guy, and then he took it to the FBI. That's probably what he's wanting you to believe. But the reality is, John McCain, and we all know this, John McCain is a fake conservative. John McCain is, look, I know he did, I guess, some courageous things back in Vietnam by being a prisoner of war and withstanding the torture and so on and so forth. But John McCain has done some things that I would have to say are pretty close to treasonous in some of the things that he's done. Met with ISIS personnel, help outfit and arm ISIS personnel. He's met with this guy, passing on false information to the FBI that was not vetted. He didn't vet it. He had this guy hand it to him who's not even an American citizen, and he took it at face value. We don't know who this guy is. He doesn't work for the American government. So, very strange relationships between this Sir Andrew Wood and Putin. So he's got connections to Russia. Christopher Steele, who's got connections with him. Christopher Steele was the retired British spy. And so I don't really look at them as two different people. Yeah, they're two different people, but I look at them as one and the same. See, this is where we have to start looking at the reality of what happened and stop looking at, and I'm not questioning Catherine Herridge. Catherine Herridge is reporting on what this guy, Sir Anthony Wood, told her. But what I think and what the picture that I'm seeing is that Christopher Steele, the retired former British spy, and Sir Andrew Wood, former ambassador from Britain's to Russia during the Putin beginning, those two individuals, I think, worked together hand in hand in this whole process, along with whatever other people, Fusion GPS and Democratic operatives, and the money that was flowing through there. First off, if you think $168 is all they got paid, listen, you're kidding yourself. They probably made millions off of this whole deal. So right off the bat, what we're seeing is people who actually do have contacts with Russia. They have huge contacts with Russia. And I find this very alarming, the fact that our Senator, John McCain, had this close relationship with this guy, that the same information that is going to John McCain, who hates President Trump, was also going to the media, was also going to Capitol Hill and to the FBI all at the same time. So Steele had told Wood that that he had great connections at the top of the FBI. Wood insists that he never read the dossier. I find that hard to believe. Even if he didn't read the official dossier, I have a feeling he was probably partly involved with the collection of the information. I think that there is Russians that are in the payroll or on the payroll with the DNC or with Putin. And they didn't listen. Putin didn't want Trump in office. If you think he wanted Trump in office, you're crazy. He wanted Hillary Clinton in office. He would have gotten more out of Hillary Clinton than anybody else. So I think what we see is the edge of this picture. It's like me when I wake up in the mornings, my eyes are all foggy and I'm trying to look at my phone. I can't really make out what it's saying. That's the kind of picture I'm seeing here. And what I'm seeing through this are Russians, British spies, and a British ambassador working to craft a fake dossier that they could hand over to the FBI. Now, I think that was either ordered through collusion of the DNC, the heads of the FBI and the DOJ, the deep state people, and individual globalists like John McCain, where I know this sounds conspiratorial, but again, I'm looking at a picture that is starting to develop, and that picture does not show me what's being reported, which is this guy did this guy was a go-between, he never read the dossier, John McCain accepted the dossier and handed it over to the FBI because he's a good guy. That does not exist in the real world. What I'm seeing is a fuzzy picture of a group of people that worked together to create a dossier, that probably worked together to, believe it or not, to hack the DNC after they realized John Podesta's emails had been compromised. So they played the victim card by hacking the DNC. They had the Russians hack the DNC. That way they could leave footprints around inside there, not physical footprints, but inside the computer, and how when they hacked that thing, they wanted it to be known that the Russians hacked it. And at the same time, this dossier that's paid for by the Democratic Party, that is being crafted and planned by this group of people, John McCain, the Democratic Party, this British spy, this British ambassador, and Russians. Listen, it's all fitting together too much, and the collusion with Russia is not pointing at President Trump. The collusion in this big picture are pointing towards the Democratic Party and globalists and John McCain and these other people. Remember, forget about this like, I'm a conservative, and so I vote for the Republican Party. I'm liberal, and I vote for the Democratic Party, and they're American, and they'll never be treated. Listen, forget about that crap, all right? There are forces in play that are not from this country, and they rarely come to this country. George Soros types, other globalists, other world leaders, they're all a part. I know it sounds conspiratorial, but folks, it's just like an investigation. Things don't just happen. You don't just happen to have the same exact ideology as somebody that lives 8,000 miles away, and you just happen to have the same plan for your country as the Americans have for their country, as Spain or as Germany or Australia. That doesn't happen. Okay, that doesn't happen unless there is collusion with these specific people. And when I use the word collusion, what I'm really meaning is planning. Those people all believe in the same global mentality of making the middle class disappear, and basically having, lower class and upper class. Go to Venezuela, go to Cuba, go to China, go to any of these places, Saudi Arabia. You don't have strong middle classes. You have very rich and very poor, and that's the way the globalists want it. So what I'm seeing when I look at this is more and more evidence of a larger group of people working together and manufacturing this system so that when things went forward, they could say, oh, there's this dossier. Well, this dossier said this. Okay, so they can use that, but for some reason it didn't take. But what they did was they used the dossier to get now the dossier didn't work in the media like they wanted to, because it got discovered that it wasn't real. But what it did do in the meantime, it gave the FBI and the representatives of that global party in the FBI and the DOJ, it gave them cannon fodder to go and get these different FISA warrants. So the main objective of this dossier was probably not to screw Donald Trump in the media. It was probably like 2 or 3-fold to build a narrative for the media, to let those people that were against President Trump globally or in our government here in the United States to know that this is something we're going to use to pounce on him. And then also it was used to further these FISA warrants so they could listen in on certain things and then go after them, and ultimately help out with the special prosecutor and develop this whole investigation that was going on about Russia. there was a bigger picture, multiple legs to this dossier, and I'm sure it's bigger than the dossier, but the dossier was one of the bigger tools that they had utilized. Now, apparently, according to, and that's really all we need to hear about this story. I mean, there's more in it. There's another guy named David J. Kramer who worked for the senator, and he also attended one of these different security meetings that all these people go to. I mean, it's like they meet up and they probably discuss things that they don't discuss in other places, kind of like any of these other global type of meetings that people have. Very, very strange, very peculiar. I hope I'm making sense because, again, this stuff is kind of unfolding, and I'm trying to figure it out as we go along. Okay. Dianne Feinstein. Here's another thing that just happened today. Dianne Feinstein, who is a serial leaker, but actually says that when she does it, it's called releasing information, not leaking the information. So Dianne Feinstein goes out and she releases, let's see here. I had it written down here. Let's see, where is it at here? Feinstein said in a statement that she released the transcripts of that was the interview with the Fusion GPS, one of the Fusion GPS founders, Glenn Simpson. So she released that information about that interview. She released the transcript to combat misinformation about that interview. The innuendo, let's see, how does she say it here? The innuendo and misinformation concluding about the transcript are part of a deeply troubling effort to undermine the investigation into potential collusion and obstruction of justice. Okay, that's Dianne Feinstein. She said in a statement, the only way to set the record straight was to make the transcript public. Now, I don't know what she's really talking about because this is an investigation that's taking place behind closed doors, and an investigation, it doesn't matter what the public thinks as long as the investigation is unfolding. So for Dianne Feinstein to say this, again, she did the same thing when it came to CIA documents about, this was in 2000. Let me pull this up here real quick. She said the same thing in 2012 when she was one of the people that released a 6,000-page CIA memo. It's really more like a book about our interrogation techniques. And she hates the CIA. So she released this. She was one of the people that released this and pretty much laid out everything we do in interrogation to our enemies and to the world. So whenever Dianne Feinstein releases things, leaks things, she calls it releasing. But then she goes on tirades about people leaking stuff about her, which some members of the CIA evidently did because they were investigating her a while back, which makes you wonder why that was the case. So anyway, she released this, leaked it. She leaked the information. And in this interview, this guy, Glenn Simpson, who I got to tell you, this guy gives me, not that I'm scared of him, he gives me the heebie-jeebies. He just looks as guilty can be. I mean, he just looks guilty. And so Fusion GPS, he used to be a reporter, and now he started this firm, Fusion GPS, him and another guy. And so he says they had a source. Among many revelations in the document is a claim from Simpson's attorney, that's this guy that I just showed you his picture, that someone died because of the dossier, which was commissioned by Fusion GPS. And they were killed because the dossier was publicly released. He wants to be very careful to protect his sources, Attorney Josh Levy said during the August 22 Senate Judiciary Committee interview of his client. Somebody's already been killed as a result of the publication of this dossier, and no harm should come to anybody related to this honest work. Okay. First of all, people aren't necessarily usually killed because of honest work. And I think what happened here is that there might have been people used as sources to back up this information. And when the information backfired, they killed them, probably is what happened. I mean, look, they're Russian. No telling what happened. So they're going to backstop that stuff. And you're never going to be able to go to that person and say, you know, tell us the truth, and they'll spill the beans because they're dead now. So that's what I believe it happened here. The dossier, as we said, was written by former MI6 agent Christopher Steele, and they also were saying that there was an internal source in the Trump campaign team. Now, I've got a lot of different individuals that I think that could be it. I mean, I'm not going to – I don't really want to insinuate anything, but could have been Bannon. Could have been Bannon. We don't know. It could have been any number of people. I mean, I don't know. Very interesting how he was a constant leaker while he was there, according to President Trump. It's very interesting how before he got on the Trump team, he was wanting to take Trump out. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't Bannon. I don't want to say that and piss anybody off, but there's plenty of people that could have been. Although it shouldn't be that hard to figure out because the campaign was very small for President Trump compared to most. Heck, it could have been Reince Priebus for all we know. But it's very interesting that that they had somebody in there, had got somebody in there, when in fact, and this is a lesson for President Trump, if you pick people who are good quality people who have great experience, then you're more likely to run everything successful than when you pick people who are loyal to you. That's not a good way to pick people to do great work. At best, they're going to do good work sometimes. You need to pick great people to do great work. Subject matter experts, people who are loyal to the United States, that have shown that they care about this country by having gone through boot camp or any other number of things that they've done in order to show that they can be trained, they can be trusted, and that they won't quit the United States. So, I'm seeing a picture develop, as I've said, of that I think, I mean, I've thought this all along, that this whole thing was created by a group of people that wanted Hillary Clinton elected, these globalists. They're not just American citizens. They're not just Democrats. They're also Republicans. They're also people from other countries. Right now we know at least Russian sources and British sources. Some of the British sources, the ambassador has close contacts with Putin. So we know that stuff was there. We know that Hillary Clinton had relationships with Putin and with other Russians. That's the picture that I'm seeing develop. Now, when you look at Mueller and you look at the rest of all this stuff that's going on with the Trump investigation, with the Hillary investigation that happened, you see the reality of, like when you look at these reports, how the investigations were painted in a picture that's with very light strokes. There's no depth to these investigations and the information that you're given about Trump or any of these people. You don't see Dianne Feinstein releasing information about the Trump investigation, but how quickly she is to release this information about the dossier. Why does she have to do that? What good did it do to the investigation to make sure everybody sees this stuff? It's very interesting when we think about that. Now, I'm going to switch gears here real quick. I know I got started late, and thank you guys, Becky. Thank you. I know Becky is like my alarm clock that screams in my ear when I'm late getting started, which is almost always. It never fails when I've got other stuff going on. Listen, I'm not committed to a paycheck here. I have to go get a paycheck, all right? So I got to do other work. in order to survive. The GoFundMe pages, listen, I got to say this real quick. I said something the other day about the GoFundMe. I hadn't said anything in a while. And first of all, GoFundMe has got to change their app back to the way it was. They've ruined this app. But Chuck Dalewood Chip, I don't know. Dalewood Chip. Anyway, Chuck donated $500 5 days ago to the GoFundMe page. Before that, Annette, she donated $200. Richard Rayburn donated $100. So people have, but those were like 9-10 days ago. The GoFundMe page, which the bigger that gets, the less I have to go out and do this other stuff, which means I can stay focused on this and get it done. This is a listener-supported show, as I've always said, and never tried to hide. But these people came out and did this amazing, and it's amazing, and I can't thank you all enough. But don't forget about the GoFundMe page. Before we lose our listeners, before I switch over to Bradley Manning, I do want to remind everybody that, Jim DeLong and I've been missing him and he missed me, but I figured this out. What we're going to do is we're getting the books. It's just, it takes some time to get these books. What we're going to do is we are going to get every one of your addresses, the people that these books are due to go to, and we are going to purchase the books and send them to your address. And then I've gotten labels that fit inside the book, just like this. And so I'm going to autograph those labels. You'll take them, and then you'll stick them right here inside your book. I didn't know that this was a regular practice with people, but it makes sense because otherwise the books have to come to me, and we have to pay shipping 3 times to me, or twice, to me and then to you. It's just easier to do it this way. So when we get your addresses, we're going to send, we got to order the books first of all. So the books will go straight from Amazon to you or Barnes & Noble, whoever has them at this point in time. The books will go straight to your address, and then I will fill out this and autograph to you this label that you will take and pull the back of it off, and you stick it in the inside of your book, and hence you have the autographed book. There you go. So tomorrow I'm going to talk about DACA. I'm not going to talk about that tonight. I think it's a simple fix with DACA. But I want to end the show tonight talking about Chelsea Manning. I'm not going to go to another block or anything like that. This Bradley Chelsea Manning freak, okay? Okay, first of all, are there people out there that are transgender that are not fruitcakes and are not crazy? I believe that that the whole transgender issue is a psychological issue. I think the suicide rate proves that getting a sex change does not change that psychological issue. The suicide rate amongst people who have had sex changes is far greater than, I'm talking like 40% higher than people who've not had a sex change. So the sex change isn't really going to fix the problem because the problem is a psychological issue. I think the field of psychology and psychiatry should be closely looked at as being, it should be reevaluated as to whether or not they should be considered in the medical field whatsoever, because I think the fact that they have done what they did and coming out and saying that transgender is not a psychological issue has it's a gross negligence of their medical practices. I think it's sick and it's political and subversive. It has nothing to do with looking at people and the reality of the problems that they have. I'm not trying to say anything bad about people. If somebody has a psychological problem, many of us have PTSD or a TBI, that's a traumatic brain injury, or suffer from depression. These are all psychological issues that you need to treat. Well, you know, we look at asthma, for instance. That's a medical problem. That's something that is faulty within you that doesn't allow you to breathe properly in certain situations. That's a medical issue. It can be treated with medicine. A psychological issue has to be treated with therapy, sometimes medicine, but it is an issue of a psychological nature. For this area of medicine to go down a road so political that they discount the facts is really malpractice of their field. And I think we see the same thing with them going on live television and talking about psychological issues that the president has when he's not their patient, and they have no true overall standard for to evaluate his behavior. They don't know what goes on behind closed doors. They've never had him in a room. They've never put him through certain tests. And to say somebody is a certain way without having done that evaluation is, I mean, it's malpractice, really, to tell you the truth. It's malpractice. These people should have their licenses revoked. Now, when it comes to Bradley Manning, I don't call him Chelsea because our taxpayer dollars paid for his sex change while he's in prison after he committed what I believe is treason against the United States government and the American people. This guy is a felon. He is, I think, definitely a narcissist, potentially somewhat psychopathic. Again, I have a degree in psychology, but I don't know for sure about what he is or what he isn't. I could say that he shows these tendencies, but I've never been able to fully evaluate the guy because I've never met him. But I will tell you that his criminal actions that he was charged with and convicted of show that he has a sense of detachment from reality or a conscience, that he would go and take the, nothing changed because of Chelsea Manning, because of Bradley Manning. Nothing changed. There's nothing different in the way the government works because of Bradley Manning, except for information that he probably got and shared. I personally believe somebody could have died. People probably did die because of Bradley Manning. I believe that that investigations became more difficult because of Bradley Manning. But the interesting thing about it is nothing he did really affected things where it's better for the American people. What I do think happened was he was able to get a hold of information and release that to the globalists and spread that information across the board to nefarious people all around the world. I think that's one thing that he did, and did it very successfully. He's a felon. He has very little conscience, if any at all. He's a narcissist and is out of touch, complete out of touch with reality. He is somebody who, like the other people that I was describing earlier, got a sex change, but it did not fix any of the problems that he has. And for this Bradley Manning to come out and speak out against law enforcement, saying that our police should be disarmed, first of all, who in the world are you, and who do you think you are to say anything about law enforcement? You have no more credibility than any other pedophile or murderer or rapist or violent offender or traitor to the country that's still in prison. You got lucky because we had a president for a period of time in this country that was a subversive operative, and probably was working with you in some way, form, or fashion to get this information out. And you probably knew along the way that they were going to protect you and pull you out of prison and pardon you at one point or another. That's what happened. It doesn't excuse the subversive, criminal, unconscious acts that you did against your country. It just because you were pardoned doesn't mean that you were innocent of the crime. Just because you were pardoned doesn't mean that you are somehow a righteous political spokesperson for anybody except for your own narcissistic soul. That's it. And I think that Bradley Manning, and I don't say this lightheartedly about a lot of people. I really don't. I believe in the value of the human soul. I do. I'm a Christian. And I believe that every soul counts. And I believe that ultimately if Bradley Manning could find the Lord, that'd be great. But look, I'm a warrior, and I'm of this earth, and I'm of this country. And I believe if Bradley Manning has a face-to-face with God and is forgiven for his sins, that's God's. I'm not here to judge Bradley Manning on his character or the nature of his relationship with God. That's not my job. But what I am is a servant to the Constitution and a servant to this country. And I really do hope that lightning strikes Chelsea Manning and burns a hole right through his heart and that he falls dead. That's what I hope. Because he is a traitor, and he has damaged the national security of this country. And if there was a real president, a real leader that was in office in last year in 2016, or whenever Bradley Manning went to jail, he should have been convicted and he should have been hung until his little weenie head popped right off. That's what should have happened. Now, I don't talk that way about most people, and I don't wish ill on most people, but I will tell you, when it comes to protecting my country, again, I'm not going to judge his sins. That's not my job. I'm just as sinful as anybody else. But what I will judge him on is the threat that he is to this country, and he's still a viable threat to this country. And because he got pardoned, I guess that the justice system can't go after him. So I just hope that he, I don't know, gets hit by a bus, or a large piece of rock falls on him, or he gets struck by lightning straight through the heart. That's what I hope. And that because the justice system failed, I hope and pray that God will go ahead and bring him home so that he can be judged for his sins. That's what God's job is. But that he will alleviate that leech, that traitor from this country. That's what I hope. And there's a lot of people in this country that I don't like and that I think are threats. But that guy is a real threat to this country and needs to go away. And, I don't feel bad because I said that at all. I don't. I think that it would be a great example to the rest of these people what can happen if you are a traitor to this country. And it would have been great if our justice system had done its job, but unfortunately it didn't. And we were under the command of a nefarious, subversive president at the time, and so justice was not laid down upon the neck of Bradley Manning. You're not Chelsea, dude. You still got the DNA of Bradley Manning, and I don't care what color you paint your fingernails or how loud you scream. The fact is, you are nobody. You are somebody who turned your back on your country. And I don't care if there's people that welcome you and say you're awesome. The fact is, dude, when you go to sleep at night, you, for one, know that you're really a guy, no matter whether or not you have that penis hanging between your legs or not. And two, you know in your heart that you're a traitor. And no matter, listen, the whole thing about narcissism is that, unfortunately, every now and then, when you look at yourself in the reflection and what's looking back out at you, you hate it. You hate yourself. And I guess that's the gift that keeps giving with narcissists, is that they will lie and they will steal energy, but ultimately, when they look in the mirror, they're sickened by what they see. And, Bradley Manning, you'll never be a woman. I grew up with women. I have 3 sisters and a mom that I love to death, and all these women that are on this show right now that are beautiful Americans, they're awesome. They're women. You are a skinny, effeminate guy who has a psychological problem that you didn't fix, so you mutilated your body. And you also committed treason against this country. So, do us all a favor. Next time it ices over, go out, put your heels on, and go for a jog. And hopefully you'll fall and bust your head wide open. That's it. And that's how I feel about it. Please share this. And if Chelsea Manning, Bradley Manning, if you're watching, screw you. That's all I have to say. And I say that with a sincere heart. I truly mean it. I hope you fall down and your soul disappears from this earth. All right. With that being said, why don't we move on and do the Truth Zone. This dog has been amazing. I was bad-mouthing him at first. Are you alive? Yeah, he's alive. He's ready to go for a walk. All right, let's go to the Truth Zone. I know certain people don't like it when I talk like that, and I apologize. I know it's that's another side of me that most people don't get to see. But listen, I spent a lot of years in service to this country, and I'm still in service to this country, but I spent a lot of years in official capacity, being trained by the country, by being trained to defend this country. I don't take lightly. Look, I'll say this. You know, guys like Rob O'Neill who like to go around trashing me here and there, I don't give two craps about what that guy says, but I have great respect for him operationally. I wouldn't trust Rob O'Neill or many of these other guys that have done stupid stuff. I wouldn't trust them with my car. I wouldn't trust them with my girlfriend. I wouldn't trust them with my money. But I would go into battle with somebody like Rob O'Neill any day. He's proven that he's a true gladiator when it comes to war. But people like Bradley Manning and people like that, you cannot turn your back on them. These are people that will destroy this country if they get a chance. So if I use, over-the-top language, or I use words and I say things about Bradley Manning that may seem a bit aggressive, I do that because that's how much I care about this country and our freedom and you all. I care about you all. Look, it's like going to see a movie that is really funny, or eating something that tastes really good. If you do it by yourself, it's no fun. There's no meaning in doing stuff by yourself. When you're a part of the citizenry, when you're free and you are enjoying that freedom and defending that freedom together, I mean, that's amazing. That's what it's all about. It's not just about yourself. It's not just about your individual freedom. It's about being a part of the entire citizenry and standing together. And I don't take that lightly. So when the warrior comes out in me and I say things in a kind of almost a funny kind of way about how Bradley Manning should leave this earth, know this, that although my language may be lighthearted, the rage in me is not. And anyone that goes against this country, politician, celebrity, traitor, that's a veteran, I don't care who it is, or civilian, if you try to injure this country and its national security or the freedoms of the people in this country, I have no love for you. And if I was still in official capacity, or even if I wasn't, and I knew that you were going to injure this country, I would do what I could to stop it. And in the cases of people like Bradley Manning, the Clintons, the establishment in the Democratic and Republican parties, globalists from outside this country, Hollywood, and the unbelievable evil that exists within that arena, there's going to be a day and age. If it keeps going the way it is, there's going to be a day and age where your time is over. And it may not be me, it may be other people that are watching this show, but know this. When you wake up this giant, and it eventually will wake up, you will regret it. I'm Jonathan Gillum. That's my buddy Rico down there. This is the experts. The CQRF is coming together, folks. The truth has arrived. I'll see you tomorrow. How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it.